Hey, real quickly, wanted to apologize for some of this video being out of focus. A lot of the shots when I go to my face are really blurry, and I don't know why it worked well for the Rotten Tomatoes video, but it didn't work for this one as well, and I apologize for that. What is going on, everyone? It's Joe Kiger back at it again with another new video about movie ratings that make no sense at all. If you remember from my Rotten Tomatoes video, I talked about their top 100 movies of all time list, and boy, it is just atrocious. But Rotten Tomatoes is not the only criminal when it comes to bad movie ratings. IMDb, even though I like it, has some ratings that just leave me scratching my head, to say the least. So today we're going to look at some of those. And let's get into it with some Christopher Nolan movies compared to another movie that may shock you. The results may shock you here. What do Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, The Prestige, and Inception all have in common? I'll give you a couple seconds to think. What do they all have in common? Well, according to the Metacritic Metascore on IMDb's page, these movies are all worse than Star Wars The Last Jedi. Back at it again with Star Wars The Last Jedi. Woohoo! Oh man, this is just the tip of the iceberg too. So hopefully you understand this is going to be a wild ride. But let me explain just real quick. Metascore / Metacritic is not the same as these user ratings up here. That's part of the reason I like IMDb. Some of their differences in user ratings and Metascore balance out a little bit better, but sometimes there's a terrible discrepancy. So let me show you the discrepancy here. So Batman Begins with an 8.2 and only a 70. That's honestly kind of low. And then you have The Dark Knight with a 9.0, gets an 84. I mean, it's just better than an 84. I'm sorry. Then you have The Prestige with an 8.5 and a 66. Whoa! The Prestige is honestly, arguably Christopher Nolan's best film. I would put it up there with The Dark Knight and Inception. Those may be the top three for me. But then you have Inception too, and it's just like 8.8. That's huge, and I agree with that. I think it's really good. Then a 74. But then Last Jedi comes in here with a 7.0, which is kind of mediocre, and then an 84. So you're going to see some examples of user ratings that make no sense, and then you're going to see some examples of critic Metascore ratings that don't make sense either. And then sometimes you'll just see both, and they make no sense together at all. So let's go into more movies that were lesser rated in Metascore than Star Wars The Last Jedi. How about The Green Mile? Yep, 8.6, but guess what? 61! How is it that low? It's one of the best movies ever! This is not the end of these examples, though. We also have another classic, The Matrix, 8.7. Yep, okay. 73. And Last Jedi had, what, an 80 freaking 4? And then we have the most highly rated movie on IMDb from users, The Shawshank Redemption, which I completely respect that. That is a great movie to have at the number one spot. Much better than freaking Black Panther on Rotten Tomatoes. But look at this Metascore. 80? That's just too low. Especially when you see stinking Last Jedi with 84. And then guess what else has a higher rating than that? Metacritic-wise. Black Panther with an 88! But users know it's not that good. 7.3. Some of this stuff just makes absolutely no sense. And then, going back to more Christopher Nolan movies, I went over like Batman Begins, Dark Knight, Inception, all those movies, absolutely phenomenal. And then you have Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk, which I personally freaking hated. But even if you didn't hate Dunkirk, I think most people would agree Dunkirk is not Christopher Nolan's best work. But check this out. 7.8 from users, which is nowhere near as high as all those other, like, Batman Begins. You can't see it, but all those other Christopher Nolan films. But then look at this. 90 freaking 4. That's an example of, like, the discrepancy I was talking about. 7.8 and then 94. Oh, but I've got a lot more examples pulled up. So let's go through those. Silence of the Lambs. This was just an example. I was like, what the heck? An 85 from Metascore, but it had an 8.6. it's really hard to get user ratings to an 8.6 or higher. It's really hard to get them to an 8 or higher, to be honest. So when you see something like that from 1 million ratings, over 1 million, and then you see an 85, it doesn't match up. And again, I keep going back to the freaking Last Jedi, because how is that even possible that Silence of the Lambs is 1 point higher than Last Jedi? That's just it's sickening. And then guess what? More Star Wars. The Return of the Jedi has an 8.3 from users. And then look at this discrepancy. Woohoo! 58? I mean, what? When The Last Jedi has an 84. 58? How do critics think it's that bad and then general audiences say it's that good? That's really awful. But let's continue on. There's Black Panther again, if you want to see that freaking garbage with a 94, or 88, my bad. Then we have just, when I looked at the Black Panther ratings, I was like, man, there's just a problem with MCU movies in general, the ratings. So I went to Ant-Man and the Wasp because it's arguably, in my opinion, the worst Marvel movie yet. It has a 7.0, which is not that great. Most Marvel movies are in like the mid-7 range to high 7s. But it has a 7.0. And I'm like, okay, I think it's a lot worse than that. But then, look, dude, it has a 70. And then look at the comparison here. The Avengers, arguably the best Marvel movie of all time, 69. It's lower than Ant-Man and the Wasp. Ah! Ant-Man and the Wasp was a freaking heaping pile of garbage. There were like 3 villains in it. They ruined Ant-Man and made him a bumbling idiot. The action was nowhere near as good as the first one. And yet, oh, yeah, this movie's better, according to critics, than the Avengers. What else? We have Spiderman Homecoming. I just have a huge beef with the new Spider-Man in general. I've talked about it in a recent video I did on the year 2017. If you want to check that out, it explains it a little bit. But man, we have Spider-Man Homecoming also being more highly rated by critics than the Avengers. But not only that, audiences, this is where I'm getting into beef with actual audience people that are rating this. Audiences, like general people, gave this a 7.4. But then they give Spider-Man 2 a 7.3? Like, that actually makes me so angry. Because everyone knows Spider-Man 2 is one of the best superhero movies yet. It would be, like I said, I think I mentioned some of these in Rotten Tomatoes, but it would be like Spider-Man 2, The Dark Knight, X-Men Days of Future Past, maybe Deadpool, Logan, maybe The Incredibles, something like that. And then, but Spider-Man 2 is always in the conversation when it comes to best superhero movies of all time. But Spider-Man Homecoming is better than that? But actually, the critics got that one right. 83? Yeah. I honestly think it should be higher than that. Moving on, we have another Spider-Man movie, which is still rated better. Why is this movie rated better than Spider-Man 2? And then it has a 69, because critics knew it wasn't that good. Okay, there's a problem with critics, but there's also a problem with general moviegoers rating these freaking Marvel movies way too high for no reason. Spider-Man Far From Home, first of all, is not better than Homecoming. It was worse. And it's certainly not better than... And then I have a few more examples of ratings. I'm just like, how are these even close? I think some of these movies should be way higher. And then there's one at the very end that I'm just like, this is a crime against humanity. It should start a war. But, okay, some of my favorite movies of all time are the new Planet of the Apes movies. So, if you've seen Dawn and War especially, most people think those are fantastic, and I agree with them. But then we have Dawn of the Planet of the Apes coming in with a 7.6. That's a decent rating, I'm not going to lie. But it's just way better than that. The movie deserves at least an 8.0. It honestly, to me, is a perfect 10. It's a flawless movie. Maybe the middle kind of drags a little bit, but it's like when you compare it to Spider-Man Far From Home, it's only 0.1 better than this movie. This movie's a freaking masterpiece. And then you have War for the Planet of the Apes. I think I like it better than Dawn, but they're very close. Like, they're both flawless to me, legitimately. And then it ties Spider-Man Homecoming, I'm pretty sure. Like, what? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah, War for the Planet of the Apes is the equivalent to Spider-Man Homecoming. Just stop. Just stop. And then, also, more movies I don't like. Mission Impossible. I love these movies. I think they deserve much higher ratings than they have. And then we have Mission Impossible Fallout. Some people think this is the best action movie ever. I would agree with those people. But it has a 7.7. Like, 0.2 freaking decimals higher than Spider-Man Homecoming. And there's a ton of other Marvel movies that you can compare it to that it's like, some of them are being rated better than this movie. It's just not that bad. Like, with 7.7 is just criminally low. And then another example, Mission Impossible 3 has bad ratings from the audience and the critics. Why? Why? I think I may have just hit the focus button. Hopefully that didn't mess up. But why? Mission Impossible 3 is a great action movie. It's one of the best in that series. Honestly, I think 3, 4, 5, and 6, I don't have another finger, are some of the best action movies ever. And they all, at least to me, are at least 9 out of 10s. But then you have a freaking 66 and a 6.9. Like, what? And again, when you compare it to some of the other ones, it just makes no freaking sense. Finally, oh man, I already did a review on this movie. It just gets me so fired up. This is a huge, This is a huge discrepancy in the audience ratings to critic ratings. And this is one where I take the side of the critics. This movie has been blown way out of proportion. So let's go back real quick. Let's recap. Mission Impossible 3 with a 6.9. Focus, please. Mission Impossible Fallout with a 7.7. War, 7.4. Dawn, 7.6. All these other movies, 7.0. Where's the Avengers? There. Okay, 8.0. What do you think all these movies have in common? Well, it might surprise you to know that audiences, not critics, audiences have rated all of these movies lower than Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yay! Wow, that movie was so freaking mediocre. And yet it gets an 8.1. Why? I expected this movie to start going down in the ratings because most of the time, ratings will start out really high from audiences, and then as time progresses, it'll even out. This one has just stayed astronomically high. That's an 8.1. And if I'm right, I think that's part of the top 250 list on IMDb. So I checked on it, and Zack Snyder's Justice League is actually not in the top 250, even though some of these here at the bottom of the list have 8.0s. And Zack Snyder's Justice League had an 8.1, which is odd. No thank you, HP support assistant. But then look at the critics. This is the discrepancy I'm talking about. It can't even focus. Jeez. Okay, you 54. You can barely see it. 54 to 8.1? I actually agree with the critics here. I don't know how anyone has rated the freaking Zack Snyder Justice League as an 8.1, higher than the Avengers, higher than Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and a ton of other fantastic movies. But yeah, these are just a few examples of IMDb's horrible ratings. And I don't know. There's no point to the video. I just wanted to share.